This is going to be a hard one for me today. So please forgive me if I'm a little more emotional than usual. Also, I just want to start with a quick warning. There's a brief mention of a suicide attempt in this video. So what I'm going to talk to you about today are some of the words that cheaters use. Those words that long after they've been said, they echo in our heads. And I'm going to start by reading to you some of the words that my ex-husband left me with. So it all started 10 years ago when, out of the blue, I got this text from him. I'm sorry to be such a coward leaving you this way. I am leaving. Please reach out to someone to let the dogs out as I am leaving the state. The code for the garage is 5914. I'm truly sorry, but I can't do this anymore. Please give me some time to come to terms with my decision. I will call you in a few days. I am sorry that I have failed you. And even in that brief text, there were already lies. He never called. I don't know if he was sorry. He certainly never acted that way. Now, the important thing to understand with that text is I had spoken to him mere hours before. I was across the country visiting my dad. And hours before I got that text, I was told how much he missed me, how much he loved me, how much he was looking forward to an upcoming trip we were talking about. And then I got that text. But it didn't end there. My dad got me back home, so we flew across the country. About 24 hours after the text, I walked into the kitchen in the house that I had shared with my husband for the last 10 years. And on the kitchen island, there was a letter, typed, unsigned, and for some reason I still don't understand, in duplicate. Here's what that letter said. Lisa, I am afraid there is no easy way for me to say this. I'm leaving. We have had a long and rich life together, but I can no longer live this life anymore. As I told you several months ago, I feel as though we have been drifting apart for a number of years. It was a gradual thing, but I can honestly say that it has reached a point where I can no longer share time with you without wondering when I can be away from you again. I can't keep living this lie. It's not fair to either one of us. I will continue to support you as best I can from wherever I end up. I will continue to work for DS, but I would appreciate if you didn't involve them in this matter. We had some amazing times together, and I will treasure these memories for the rest of my life. I think people change as they experience life, and unfortunately, we have grown so far apart that I simply cannot relate to you in any way. I know that this will hit you very hard, and for that I am sincerely sorry. I have never wanted to do anything to harm you in any way, but in doing so, I have made myself unhappy for many years. I know that once you recover from the shock of this, you will bounce back and live a happy and satisfying life. A better and more honest life than I could ever hope to offer you. Everything I have left behind is yours, and all I have taken is my clothing and the equipment I need to make a living. I will never ask you for forgiveness or understanding. I am a coward who couldn't tell you to your face that I am leaving. If I don't do this now, then I probably never will. I need my life to have some sort of meaning to it, and unfortunately, working in the basement of my house and watching TV and playing video games isn't it. I'm sorry, but my life is very quickly becoming that of my parents. No matter how much I see that, it feels like there is nothing I can do to change the path that I am on. From this point on, there is nothing more that I can say other than how sorry I am for leaving you in this way. I will do everything I can from this point forward to try and make this as easy on you as possible. I didn't strip the account to leave. I sold everything downstairs that I felt was part of the old me that I so desperately needed to leave behind. And I don't know from an outsider's perspective how much you can tell that there's inconsistencies in that letter and how many lies there are. Just to address a couple, the situation he referenced of several months ago when he said that he felt as though we had been drifting apart. He never said that. There was one night where he broke down, and it was very unlike him. And I couldn't get much out of him, but he said he wasn't happy. And I asked for clarification if that meant he wasn't happy with me, with the marriage. And he said, no, I love you. I love us. And he held me tightly. After that night, I wondered if he was depressed, but he wouldn't talk about it. In fact, he acted like everything was completely normal until the day it wasn't. You know, he keeps saying how sorry he is. And he talks about the poor me and that he needed to be happy and be fulfilled. But as I found out, what he was doing was totally in opposition to that. And then, you know, the piece about that he didn't strip the account to leave. I wondered for a long time, well then, why did he strip the accounts? Because he certainly did. To the tune of almost $50,000, both from the accounts and on my credit cards. That actually wasn't the hardest, though, that I had to read. There was one more. He ended up committing bigamy, and I figured that out, contacted the police, and he was arrested. And after questioning, they booked him, and he was in jail for about a day until his parents bailed him out. And that night, after he was bailed out, he was alone. His other wife at that point had left him, and his parents hadn't made it to where he was yet. And he attempted suicide that night. But before he attempted, he sent out an email. It was sent to my mom. In fact, we were in the district attorney's office when the email came through. We were waiting to talk to the victim advocate. So he sent this email to my mom, and he CC'd his other wife. Again, at this point, she had left him. And I think, in part, he sent this to her to try to get her back. In this, I call the other wife Amanda. It's not really her name, but I don't feel any need to reveal her identity. By the time you get this, I expect I will already be gone for good. I guess I just need somebody I can open up to right now before I close this final chapter forever. First and most importantly, my feeble defense. Lisa is not the easiest person to live with, but hey, neither was I. I lived a life with a woman who saw every day as another problem. Can you imagine living a life with a person with whom day in and day out saw life as misery and seemed to desperately need for me to feel the same way? This had been going on for many, many years. Ever since Lisa self-diagnosed herself with shingles, she has been suffering from colds, illness, aches, stress, and a cadre of other problems that she just tells me I can't understand. For years, I have been sharing my life with a woman that only seems to be happy when she's letting you know just how miserable she is. For years, I worked every hour of overtime and took on every job I could so she could have the freedom to try and find whatever might bring her some shred of happiness. I gave up my life to work like a machine so she could have everything she needed to be happy, only to just be reminded of how unhappy and awful life is. When I broke down to Lisa a few months ago, she asked me if I might be depressed. I've been depressed and contemplating suicide for years. You would think that years spent sleeping in different rooms would have been some indication. I hope that this is coming across so that this makes some sense. I have lost everything. Yes, I am guilty of leaving Lisa in the worst way possible, and yes, I am a coward, but I didn't create the mess that she will unfortunately have to work with on her own. Did you know that your daughter isn't the world's most responsible spender? This isn't entirely her fault, as I should have just cut up the credit cards and screamed, "No more." I always just thought that if my bonuses kept coming, I might be able to keep up with the tremendous amount of money we were throwing out the door each month. I think things truly came to a head for me when Lisa self-diagnosed herself with celiac. Suddenly, our $80 grocery bills jumped to a staggering $250, in which I was buying cheap seltzer water and bargain rate prepackaged sliced turkey. I have never been able to say no to Lisa. When she had to have a giant deck and enormous hot tub, I eventually gave in. When she had to have thousands of dollars in deck furniture, I gave in to the pressure. When everything was done with the deck and suddenly she was under more pressure and had to go on vacation, even though she promised me the deck would be the end of the spending spree. I eventually just caved and gave in. Look at the pictures on my laptop. Do I really look happy? I would send you the pictures, but I have nothing but the clothes I am wearing and my phone. Please let Lisa know that the password to my laptop is MondoAbo42, and the password to the DS computer is Monkeybone. The DS computer is just that, a work machine. My laptop is whatever she wants. It holds the scraps of what was my life, and I hope she smashes it into tiny little pieces, because that machine brought me more happiness than I have felt in a great many years. I had thought today that I would be able to take my equipment and the DS gear, pack it into my car, and move to Michigan to try and save my job. As Lisa has seen fit to tell the police to take everything from me, then even that little shred of hope is even gone. I meant what I said in my letter. I would have worked for the rest of my life to help Lisa pay off our debt. I want to be completely clear in this matter, as my arresting officer asked a question that could only have come from one place. I didn't steal and hide anything. I didn't empty out her account and hide the funds somewhere else. To do what I have done, I cashed in my retirement funds to try and live this little dream. I knew it would come to an unpleasant ending, but I had hoped that everybody wouldn't turn against me. It's ironic that I would turn to you to share my tale, as your daughter has done nothing but complain about you. But you can think of this as my final confession, my last rites. You somehow seemed to be the right person to share with. I would like to share my love and time with Amanda. Christ, how do I explain myself? Yes, I love her. Yes, I have given up everything for this amazing woman. Yes, I am damned all the more for it. I met the amazing woman in Las Vegas while I was working a show in March. I was feeling especially low after an awful night spent pretending to enjoy the company of people who cared for nothing but themselves. To be honest, I was looking for an end that night. Instead, after walking for a few hours, I stepped into a little bar to listen to a bit of music and met the last bit of happiness in my life. She just seemed to glow for me across the room. Maybe it was her smile or her eyes. Hell, it was probably both that drew me to her and scared me half to death. I kept trying to work up the courage to leave when I looked across the room and found her right in front of me. All thoughts of flight left my mind at that moment, and I was suddenly desperate to talk to this amazing woman. Let me be clear at this point. I have been on the road for a very, very long time and have spoken to many women over the course of my travels. Never have I ever cheated. As these are my final words, I can and will say and tell whatever I want, and damn the world if you don't believe me. This woman was different. I wish I could explain to you why, my dear reader, but there was something magical about her. I met this woman in the sinkhole that is Vegas, only to learn that she understood my stupid sense of humor and enjoyed my company. Even more importantly, she was vastly smarter than me and didn't rub it in my face. I wish you could meet her. She is without a doubt the most incredible and intensely amazing person I have ever met in all of my travels, and somebody I'm proud to have shared my final moments with. My relationship with her was the best and happiest I have been in. It was the happiest I have ever been, and now it's over. I wish that we could have some closure with her before I have to do this awful thing to myself. I wish to everything that is good and right in the world that she didn't turn her back on me the way she did. I gave up everything, and now I am left by myself with just this one awful answer to all of my problems. I love Amanda because she gave me the only hope and happiness I have had in too many years. Now I end my life because in the end, we simply die alone with nobody to care. I would have sent this tonight, but the razor in my room wasn't up to the job of finishing this nasty task. I will send this all later this morning as soon as I can secure the proper tools to end my life. I didn't want this, but I am alone and hopeless. The only people I have ever cared about in my life all want me dead. At least I can bring them some comfort by making this happen. I'm sorry for unloading this on you, but I needed to share with somebody before I left for eternal darkness. I know what waits for me after this life. Nothing. Eternal and everlasting emptiness. Who knows? Maybe some scrap of me still lingers on afterwards to ponder life's greatest questions. Or maybe I will wind up in a world of eternal hell and damnation. But then really, who cares what happens to me? I will die alone. We all die alone. Be well, Kathy. I'm sorry for emptying my soul to you, but I had no place else to turn. Please help Lisa through these hard times and never tell her of this letter. If you ever have a chance to meet Amanda, I know you will understand just how amazing she really is and how crushed I am to lose her. I can't live without her, and she thinks of me only as a monster. Was I really so wrong to try and find happiness in my life? I guess the final answer is yes. That letter. That caused me more grief than probably anything else. Sorry. I hesitated about putting it in my book because it paints me in such a horrific light. And in an accurate light. But I decided to share it. And the reason I did was because for far too many of us that have been cheated on, that's the kind of garbage that we're told. There's projection, like in there where he's talking about the spending spree. Yeah, I guess who did that one? There's the outright lies. There's the delusion, how my mom would love to meet his other wife. And unlike many people, I have it in writing. I've got that proof, that evidence. Of course, that made it harder to hear. I spent months reading that letter, tearing it apart, dissecting it, finding the evidence that disproved the lies he told about me. For example, the deck and Hot Tubby talks about. I have the deck plans on his computer that he drew. I have the emails that he sent to me talking about it. And I was the one that worked summer school to pay for the majority of it. Nothing he said was real. But there's patterns. There's patterns in what he said that are evident in what most cheaters end up saying. And that's what I want to share with you, is some of those generalizations. Because once you recognize that they have a playbook, basically they have these phrases and these certain things that they turn to. And once you recognize that, it's easier to not take it personally. Listen to me say that. Well, here I am getting all emotional over that stupid letter. Didn't know I could still feel this much about it, but something about seeing those words. All right, so here goes. Here are the things you can expect a cheater to say. The first category, they like to deny things. They will outright tell you that it's not true, that what you're seeing isn't real, that what happened didn't happen. My ex-husband did this that night when he broke down, and I asked him point blank that night if there was somebody else. And even though he was already engaged to this someone else, he swore up and down that there wasn't. And part of this too, they like to pepper their speech with words such as promise, truth, honest. You might have noticed honest a lot in his letters. It's like they're trying to convince us, because it's certainly not true. Cheaters often project. They accuse us of doing the thing that they're doing. In his letters, my ex did that with the money. He accused me of spending irresponsibly when he was the one emptying out the accounts and charging my credit card without my knowledge. I found out later that he also had been accusing me of cheating. He told completely made up stories to his bosses about my supposed infidelity. The funny thing is all of this happened while I was working, so I'm not sure what exactly he thought the life of a school teacher was. So pay attention to what the cheater's accusing you of, because often they're really pointing fingers at themselves. Cheaters like to blame. It's not their fault. You're the one that made me do this. If you only paid more attention to me, if you were only happier, whatever it is, it's your fault. You made me do this. What BS. No, it's not your fault at all. Yes, the marriage is two people. Yes, you are responsible for your part in the marriage. You're not responsible for the cheating. Don't take on that blame. And cheaters will often deflect. They want to distract you. Instead of paying attention to the signs of the infidelity, they're going to try to get you to pay attention to anything else. The great magician trick. One of the ways that my ex would do this was with affection. I realized only after the fact that anytime I asked a pointed question, or anytime I, get a little too close to the truth, a little too close for comfort, he would pull me in to this wonderful, comforting bear hug and just soothe me. And he knew that would calm all of my worries. And damn, I wanted to believe what he was saying. I wanted to believe that everything was okay. And when I was in his arms, I could believe it. So pay attention to those misdirections, because oftentimes they're trying to keep you from looking where you really need to look. Another thing that cheaters like to do is try to justify their actions. They'll say, well, everybody needs love. Or, the other person came on to me. I wasn't looking for it. Or, maybe, well, I didn't love them. There was no emotion involved. It was just sex, nothing else. The justifications will change. They often will try to excuse their behavior. They're trying to make it make sense. And, if you've been basically under their spell for a while, sometimes those justifications seem pretty plausible. That's the scary part. Once you get some distance, though, you'll realize just how dumb they really were. But don't be too hard on yourself for believing them. Many of us do. In a similar vein, sometimes the cheater will try to minimize what happened. They'll pass it off as an accident, or it had no meaning, or you're really the one I love. I love you, that's what matters. This other person doesn't matter at all. But the thing is this isn't something minimal. We're not talking about, somebody who accidentally left the toilet seat up or left the front door unlocked. They didn't accidentally fall into somebody's bed. No, this was a choice. It's not minimal. In fact, I'd say it's pretty major. The cheater will often try to change history. One of the ones that my ex said in that letter that made me so angry because I can't prove it was the claim that we had been sleeping in separate beds for many years. Far, far from the truth, especially what he's trying to portray. But how do I go about proving that? We had nobody else living in our home. Nobody else can back up, my side on that one. Or no one else can support his claim either. We're the only ones that know the truth on that one. And that's what cheaters do. They'll rewrite history to match their own needs. So pay attention to when your stories of your past no longer quite fit. One of the ones that I hear about frequently from people is that the story about how you and the cheater met changes. Maybe at first they portrayed it in a happy way. And then they start to change the tone of that as they start to cheat. They start to paint you as some sort of, drama queen or monster or something to give them an excuse for what they're doing. Because if you're awful, maybe then their behavior was justified. A lot of cheaters also try to elicit your sympathy. You can definitely see that in my ex's letters. There was a lot of the, oh, poor me. I love how he several times in there and then to his attorney painted me as some kind of, vindictive woman for telling the police that he committed bigamy, which is a felony, by the way. Now, was I completely motivated through altruistic means? No. Would you be at that moment? But the fact of the matter was, he did the crime. So what am I supposed to do? So he kept trying to get sympathy, because if people were feeling sorry for him, it again took away from his actions. It distracted from what he did. If people could feel sorry enough for him, maybe then he wasn't the bad guy. One last category of phrases and words that cheaters will often say is trying to create confusion. And what they'll do with this is they try to get you on their side. This often happens when you notice something, you see some sort of evidence, and you confront them with it. And instead of denying it, they act surprised and confused, like they don't understand, how that woman's shirt ended up on the floor or whatever it happens to be. And they'll create this whole story around it, and they try to get you in, acting as detective as well, trying to figure out, but the entire time you're going down a path of their making. So you may have heard words of, you made me do this. I only wanted to be happy. I haven't felt this way in so long. Oh, this person was different. You wouldn't understand. All those phrases. What I want you to ask yourself is this, and what ultimately helped me find some peace with all those words I just read to you. Think about what they have to gain from what they're telling you. If you look to that, if you try to figure out their motivation for saying that, it's quite telling. Because then all of a sudden you see, oh, that's why they have to paint me as crazy. Because then they're the sane one. Oh, that's why they have to pretend that I'm such a terrible person. Because then their behavior is excused. Oh, that's why they have to deny everything. Because they're trying to get away with it for a little bit longer. Look for their motivations. And then finally, I'll leave you with this. Is the cheater a trustworthy person? Is this somebody whose opinions you value? My guess is no. So then why would you ever let them tell you who you are and what your worth is?